Alright everybody, welcome to another edition of the Marvel Fanboy Chronicles. Today, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There are a lot of Marvel movies I really like. Iron Man, The Avengers, Winter Soldier, Ant-Man, hell, Doctor Strange. But not a single one of the MCU movies has grabbed me by the balls like Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm pretty sure I went to see that movie about 3 times just over the first week of it being out. I was hooked on a feeling that I could only get from going back and seeing that movie again and again and again. It was everything I loved about the MCU while also being unique enough to really stand out from the rest of the franchise, largely because it had to be. Nobody had heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy before the movie came out, so if it did end up being shit, nobody would have seen it, at least not compared to the amount of people who saw the other Marvel movies. But hey, everybody knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy are now, therefore there's a lot less pressure to make this movie as good as the last one. So how does it hold up? Something I should mention right off the bat is the setting I watched this film in. I don't go to many midnight showings because where I live they don't really happen very often. But this one was a midnight showing and there were a lot of people there, so this made for some annoying moments that I'll get to later on. But let me tell you, when the opening credits double as an action sequence set to Mr. Blue Sky and half the cinema starts singing along to it, it's just a fun time. So in the beginning of the film, the Guardians are going about their business, fighting a monster, collecting a bounty, and listening to some sick tunes, and of course they end up on the run from something. This time it's a race of golden people, because why not? And they come across a man named Ego, who claims to be Peter Quill's father. Ah, shit. And basically the whole film revolves around Peter Quill's relationship with this Ego character, but also the relationships between everybody in the film. There's a lot of interesting development, especially on Gamora and her sister Nebula. By the way, is it just me or is Karen Gillan, like, unrecognizable as Nebula? Props to both her performance and the makeup department on these movies, because I couldn't tell it was her until I saw it in the credit. But yeah, I think what stands out the most about this film is how self-contained it is. I think there was like 1 or 2 mentions of Infinity Stones, and Stan Lee's in it, obviously. In fact, I think his cameo kind of drags a bit in this one, but what are you gonna do? Either way, it's just nice to have a contained side story that doesn't require you to know about the stones or anything as such. There's something else about this film that really makes it stand out over the other MCU movies, and that's that the villain isn't boring, isn't bland, doesn't have a contrived motivation. Holy shit, the villain is really interesting and really compelling. Well done, Marvel. You did a good. Of course, if you have read the comics, you know exactly what the villain can do as soon as they're introduced. I didn't know this one, so I was just like, oh shit, okay. That's intense. Hey, you know what else? Remember Yondu? He's back! And he's fucking awesome in this film! I never really got that into him as a character in the first movie, but in this one, he finally gets his chance to shine, and oh my god, it is mint! There's a scene in this film that I'm just gonna call the arrow scene, and I swear to god, it is one of the coolest moments in superhero movie history. And if you don't agree with me, that's fine, but you're wrong! Alright, time to talk about the soundtrack. I was really worried that another 70s pop song soundtrack was gonna come off as really contrived, because at this point it's expected of them, you know? When they did it in the first movie, it was unique, but now we've got Suicide Squad and all that shit. So I was very much preparing myself to be at least a little bit let down by the soundtrack of this one, but boy was I wrong. They just fucking own it. They own that style. James Gunn just knows what songs to put where, and it just works. It just works! I have my hang-ups with the film. I have my irks. I didn't think a lot of it was very funny. There's a lot of what I call record scratch comedy, because, you know, the punchline always sounds like it's meant to have a record scratch noise after it. Know what I mean? Comedy that just grinds the film to a halt for a moment, and I guess it's to give the audience time to laugh, but I don't know, it just irritates me. Like when the characters are in the middle of a life or death situation and suddenly they start talking or arguing about something benign that has nothing to do with the situation they're in. And after a few minutes, another character will butt in and go, guys, is this really what we should be focusing on right now? And I'm like, no, it's not. So why are we? Don't get me wrong, it's not all like that, and the moments that are usually at least partly ignorable. But like I said, I watched this in a crowd, and the moment a bad but ignorable joke becomes unignorable is when you have to listen to everybody around you laugh their asses off at it while you just sit there. To the point where, at first, I didn't think I liked Baby Groot either, but then I realised I just didn't like having to listen to everybody around me go, "Aww," every time he came on screen. So, sorry about that, Baby Groot. You're fine with me, in hindsight. But my gripes are few and far between. All in all, I'm very happy. Thank you, James Gunn, for making another awesome film. And as always, if you like the video, let me know what you want me to review next. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, you know what buttons to press, and I'll see you next time.